It's been a mixed bag of data from China this morning. Industrial production hit a 17-year low in January to February, sending its equity markets lower. Beyond that, retail sales were in line with forecasts and fixed asset investment was slightly better than expected. Nick Parsons is the head of research and strategy at ThomasLloyd and is with me now to discuss. Nick, good to have you back.
My pleasure.
What's your takeaways from the data today?
Well, you used the expression a mixed bag. Let's just dip into that and have a look. There were some very interesting elements in the detail of these numbers. We look at manufacturing, and yes, you refer to that 17-year low. That's a bit worrisome. When you look at the detail of it, manufacturing on behalf of foreign companies, i.e. those who've previously relocated and offshored into China, that actually fell year over year for the first time since May 2009, back in the GFC. So one big theme that we're seeing is overseas manufacturers who've got production bases in China are reducing the amount that they're producing there. So that's a key thing to keep an eye on. Another one is the production of mobile phones. Now that fell almost 13% on the 2 months together, because of course we don't tend to get January numbers, which is why here when we get to the middle of March we get January and February together because of the impact of the Lunar New Year. So comparing it with December, mobile phone production is down substantially, and that probably has got some takeaways for more broadly for the sector and for markets elsewhere, because of course Apple's manufacturing base is in China, and so that's telling us something which might have impact for US markets too. So there's some interesting stuff there, most definitely within the manufacturing sector.
So this industrial production adds to the rather gloomy picture that we're seeing when it comes to China. The authorities recently downgrading their growth forecasts, also pledging further fiscal stimulus last week. Do you think we're likely to see more stimulus going ahead, whether that be on the fiscal or the monetary side, and what form do you think that might take?
I think we will see some more stimulus. Let's be clear, today's figures weren't a big surprise, because already over the last few weeks we've had the manufacturing and services PMI numbers, and that manufacturing number fell below 50 for the first time in quite some while. So they weren't a big surprise. I think they are consistent with the idea that we'll get more stimulus. I think we're going to see several things. I think we're going to see further reductions in the repo rate. We may well see some more targeted programs towards consumers, perhaps on VAT, the goods and service taxes. We could see that. And we might also see some relaxation on the issuance of municipal bonds and so on and so forth to help the financing needs. So I think we are going to see a policy response. To your point directly, I think it will be fiscal and I think it will be monetary. But also one of the things that we are seeing, and this was in the fixed asset numbers, is that we're already seeing quite a big pickup in infrastructure, most notably on roads and railways. So we're going to see direct programs of government spending as well as the fiscal and monetary easing, which is designed to set a more helpful background. But at the forefront, we've got government spending on infrastructure, and that's going to carry on apace.
So how concerned do you think we should be about the deceleration economically in China? Is it just part of the course of a developing nation of its size when it gets to this part of its development cycle that we should expect growth to slow, or is it a sign of something more sinister to come?
Well, I think that's a really important point that you raised there, because China is now the second largest economy in the world. China is a $13 trillion economy. Now, $13 trillion economies can't keep growing at 10% per annum. They've got a growth rate of a target for this year of 6.5%. Let's take the midpoint of that. Let's call it 6.25. If we look at a $13 trillion economy, 6.25% growth on that is somewhere of the order of $800 billion. Now, to put that into perspective, if it were an $800 billion economy, that would be roughly the size of the Netherlands or Saudi Arabia. I know that because I looked them up just before we came on air.
Good research,
So
I like
yeah,
it.
to have a look where it sat in the league table. So although China is slowing down, I think it is a function of its size, but it's still creating an enormous amount of GDP. So it's creating a Netherlands this year. So 6% of a big number is still a very big number itself. So I don't think we should be overly concerned about that. And China is still going to be making the biggest overall contribution to global GDP growth of any country this year. So I would say, yes, there are some interesting points in the devil of the detail, but overall there's nothing here to be concerned about in terms of the bigger picture. This is not a fresh set of additional worries either for policymakers or for investors.
What about for the global economy though? Because we're more than 10 years on from the great financial crisis now. How much could that deceleration in China weigh on the outlook for some of the other economies, the likes of the US and Europe, for example, and of course in Asia as well, which obviously is very close to China and something I know you're
Yes,
very heavily invested in?
Indeed. Well, the average length of a global expansion is somewhere between 9 and 15 years. So if we just do the count back 10 years from GFC, it's reasonable to expect that we're nearer the next recession than we were from the last one. So that's by way of context. But I still think we can see a global economy that's going to grow with a 3 in front of it for the next 2-3 years. I think what's really important is trade and the outlook for trade and tariffs and the frictions that cause, because it's already clear from the data. The more you look at it, you can see that, you know, there are firms who are perhaps withdrawing their production from China. Withdrawing it from China and replacing it with production elsewhere would have little or no impact on global growth. But of course that takes time, and you can't just create a factory overnight. You can't shift production, you can't train workers. It's one thing to shift capital, but you've then still got to have a full productive process in place, and that's going to take time. And there is a risk that some of the growth is going to kind of slip through the cracks, and that if you were to say, let's take a consensus view of something like 3.25, 3.5 for global GDP this year and next. Where are the risks to it? It's unlikely that you'd say the risks were balanced. There's probably more risk tilted to the downside. But for the rest of Asia, it's able to pick up some of the pieces that fall out of China. So we are going to see, I think, more inward investment into countries which are still very keen to attract overseas firms, overseas capital and overseas production. So I think what's a little bit nervous when you look at the China numbers still holds some positives elsewhere. And in particular, I'm thinking of countries such as Vietnam, India, the Philippines, which are very open, outward-looking, still aiming to attract overseas investment and have a rule of law, a governance structure and a tax regime which is still friendly towards that investment. So this is not the end of global growth.
Well, let's talk about the trade tensions a bit more, because there was a report this morning that the next meeting between Trump and Xi could get pushed back to April. We know that China is pushing for this new foreign investment law. How do you see those trade tensions playing out?
Well, I think when we look at the outlook for the trade talks, I think we're going to see a continued pushback of the date. So originally it was going to be March the 1st, and then it was the end of March. Now we're hearing that China's not planning any delegation to the US until perhaps the end of April. What both sides don't want is a collapse of the talks. So I think they're holding out, for markets in particular, they're holding out the carrot, and that there still is the possibility of an agreement. So I think we're more likely to be pushing the date back than seeing an absolute collapse, because a collapse of the talks, in the same way that it seemed that the talks between President Trump and North Korea failed a couple of weeks ago, a similar collapse of China-US talks would, I think, have some potentially extremely damaging impact on markets. So better just to keep pushing that out into the future, because it's in neither side's interest that this thing fails.
So So is that the key possible sort of headwind for markets then? Because we've seen the Shanghai Composite stage a very impressive rally this year, up around 20%, I believe, along with the broader emerging markets complex, in fact. Do you see those gains in the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Composite, the CSI, do you see those extending as we head into the second quarter?
I think it's going to be difficult to go much beyond here without some fresh good news. What we've had is the hope of trade. What we've had is the fact of a very slight slowdown, but hopes and small facts are probably not enough to see us advance a great deal further from here. And the other thing we have to watch in all this is the currency, because it's only 3 or 4 months ago that the renminbi was trading up towards 690. The Chinese authorities have allowed it to strengthen to 670. That is seen as how should I say, that's seen as a demonstration of good faith on their part. I don't think we're going to come down to the 660s that we were at 18 months ago. I think the currency is going to give us the clues, because if these talks were to fail, or if the Chinese believe that there's a much greater likelihood that they will, I think they'll be back to weakening the currency and putting the US on notice through what's happening in the foreign exchange market. So I think the clues are going to come from dollar renminbi. We're 672 today. If we're back up through 680 and threatening 690, that is the point, I think, that other asset classes are going to be a lot more nervous. So keep a close eye on the exchange rate.
All right, all eyes on the currency then. Nick, thank you so much for your time. That was Nick Parsons, Head of Research and Strategy at ThomasLloyd. I'm Victoria Scholar. Thanks so much for watching IGTV.